The Mechaber says in Tov Reish Pei Tes Sif Hey. Mokoim Shei Minyan.
I told that the Rav is right up against the screen. If you just move an inch or two back. Okay.
Mechaber says in Siman Tov Reish Pei Tes Sif Hey. Mokoim Shei Minyan. If you have a place where there's no minyan, so if one person knows how to read the Megillah, in that case, one could read the Megillah and pat to everyone else. But in kulam yoidim, but if they all know how to read the Megillah, kol echad kairi liatzmai. So Mechaber says, if they all know how to read the Megillah, it's better for each one to read the Megillah himself. Since there's no minyan, let's say there's only nine men there. So, since there's no minyan, the Mechaber says it's better for one, for each one. If they all know how to read the Megillah themselves, it's better for each one to read from his own Megillah, rather than have one person lane and be moitzi all the rest. The Mishnah Berurah brings that not everyone agrees to this. He brings that the Magen Avram disagrees and says that it's always better l'chatchila. It's always preferable to have one person be moitzi all the other 8, even if they all know how to read the Megillah themselves, and each one of them has a kosher Megillah to read from. It's still better for one person to read the Megillah and be moitzi all the others, because we have a concept of Berov Hadras Melech. So Mechaber holds that no, Mechaber holds if there's no minyan, it's better for each one to read the Megillah himself. The Magen Avram is of the opinion that Berov Hadras Melech, and it's always better for one person reading the Megillah and be moitzi all the other ones. And really, the concept of Berov Hadras Melech that's mentioned in the Magen Avram is really a Mefurish Gemara. 2 places in Brachas. There's one Gemara, one Mishnah of Membeis on the days, where the Mishnah says Mefurish Bolhem Yayin, if they're serving wine at a meal, whether the wine is being served before the meal, whether it's being served after the meal, one should make the bracha and be moitzi all the rest. And the Medani Yom Tov over there says that's because of Berov Hadras Melech. And there's another Mefurish Gemara and Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph in Brachas. There the Gemara is talking about Motzoi Shabbos, and let's say the oilam already made Avdallah, the oilam is sitting in Beis Medrash. You have an oilam learning in Beis Medrash, and there was no neir, there was no Avdallah candle to make the bracha of Boirei Moyer Eishan, and in the middle of the Seder, someone brings in a neir. Someone brings in a neir to make the bracha of Boirei Moyer Eish. So the Brisa brings there's a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. What's the best way to go about this? Beis Shammai say you should have each person make his own bracha, go up and down the aisles, and each person, as the neir passes up and down the rows, up and down the aisle, each person should make his own bracha. Beis Hillel say no, it's better for one person to make the bracha and be moitzi the whole oilam, because says Mefurish, because Berov Hadras Melech, it's more covered for the Eibishter when everyone is being yaitzer with one bracha. That's a Berov Hadras Melech. And the Gemara said that with the even Beis Shammai who say that it's better for each one to make its own bracha, it's not because they disagree with the concept of Berov Hadras Melech, but in that case, there would be more bittul Torah if one person is making everyone. So you have to wait till everyone is quiet down. Everyone quiets down. There'll be more bittul Torah to do it that way than to have each one make his own bracha. So that's why Beis Shammai prefer having each one make his own bracha. Beis Hillel say no. Berov Hadras Melech. And even if it's a question of maybe a bit more bittul Torah, they still hold Berov Hadras Melech, and of course we pass like Beis Hillel that the Berov Hadras Melech. So it's better for one person to make the bracha be mitzi the whole olam, rather than have each one make his own bracha. So l'chayda we have a mefush Gemara like the Magen Avram, and we have to understand those that say that it's better. In the case of Megillah, there's no minion. It's better for each one to make his own bracha. What happened to the concept of Berov Hadras Melech? There's a similar shaila. There's a halacha in the beginning of Orach Chaim, in Siman Ches and Hilchos Tzitzis. There too, the Mechaber says if you have 2 or 3 people about to be misatev with their talis, so the Mechaber says each one should make his own bracha. If they want, one can make the bracha and be mitzi the rest. But it seems from the Mechaber that it's really preferable for each one to make his own bracha. The Mishmur over there brings that many Achroim disagree with this, and they say no. On the contrary, it's better for one to make the bracha and be mitzi the rest because of Berov Hadras Melech. So again, we have to understand what are the 2 studim over here. L'chura, we have a mefush Gemara in brachas, 2 Gemaras in brachas, where it says that it's better for one person to be mitzi the others because of this concept of Berov Hadras Melech. Now, the truth of the matter is, there is a Gemara in Baba Metzia which seems to contradict this Yesod, that there's a preference to have one person being mitzi all the others. The Gemara in Baba Metzia is on Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph, and there the Gemara brings the famous statement made by Shmuel that Ksofim ein lem shmira el bekaka. If someone entrusts me to watch his money, I'm a Shem Achinim, I'm doing it free of charge. But a Shem Achinim is also responsible if he is pesheya, if he's negligent. So the Shmuel says the only way not to be considered negligent when it comes to watching money is by storing it in the ground. I've got to dig a hole in the ground and store it in the ground. Otherwise, if I put it in some drawer, that's not considered a shmira, that's considered a pshia, and if it gets stolen, I'm responsible to pay. Then the Gemara says, the Gemara brings a memra by Rav. The Rav says there's an exception to this, and that is if someone brings me his money Erev Shabbos, close to Shabbos, so then no one expects that close to Shabbos, I should take out the time to start digging holes in the ground to store the money. It's understood. If he entrusted me with his money, Erev Shabbos, shortly before Shabbos, that it's understood that I'm not going to dig a hole in the ground to be able to store the money. And Mamela, if I don't, it's not considered a pshia. It's not considered a pshia, and if it gets stolen, I'm not responsible. However, Rava says that that's only Erev Shabbos, but if the money was entrusted to me Erev Shabbos, so I'm not mechuyev at that moment to dig a hole in the ground. But as soon as Shabbos is over, and I had enough time, Moisoya Shabbos, to bury it in the ground, and I didn't, then I'm responsible. As soon as Shabbos is over, I'm mechuyev to take care of the money and bury it, store it in the ground. And if I don't do that, I'm considered a pesheya and I'm responsible in case something happens to that money. And then the Gemara continues on and says, the tzuba merabanan, who, however, if the person that's watching the money is a tzuba merabanan, he's a Talmud Chacham, then even Motzoi Shabbos, he's not considered a pesheya, because the Gemara says, "Who sava duma mi boyo leizuzi lavdalta." Maybe I'm going to need the money. Shabbos is just over. He didn't make Havdalah yet. He's not sure he may not be sure if he has enough wine for Havdalah, so maybe he's going to need that money to borrow temporarily, that money to buy Havdalah wine. So that's why he's not burying the money right away. He has a legitimate reason not to bury the money right away because he's choishesh. Maybe he's going to need that money to buy Havdalah wine. And the question is, why only a Tzubim Rabbanan? Everyone makes Havdalah. Someone who's not a Tzubim Rabbanan also makes Havdalah. So the Mefarshim say, the Maggid Mishnah says that the average person who's not a Tzubim Rabbanan, he will not bother. If he doesn't have wine, he's not going to go buy wine to make Havdalah. Go to a neighbor. He'll listen to Havdalah. He'll listen to someone else's Havdalah. He'll be yoytze with someone else's Havdalah. He's not going to spend money to buy Havdalah wine if he has an option to listen to someone else's Havdalah. So if he's not a Tzubim Rabbanan, there's no excuse why he didn't dig a hole in the ground, why he didn't bury the money right after Shabbos. A Tzubim Rabbanan who wants to make Havdalah himself, he doesn't want to rely on someone else's Havdalah, so he has a legitimate excuse why he didn't bury the money immediately, because he wants to have the money available to be able to buy Havdalah wine. So it sounds like there's a milah in making Havdalah yourself. It's Tzubim Rabbanan, according to Rashi, doesn't want to be yoytze with someone else's Havdalah. He wants to make Havdalah himself. But the question is, on the contrary, it should be preferable. It should be preferable to hear Havdalah, hear someone else's Havdalah. That way you have Roivam. We're all being yoytze with one person's Havdalah. The Gemara, according to the Gemara in Brachis, and that's not only does that work, that's preferable to be yoytze with someone else's bracha, someone else's boirei priyagofen, or someone else's moirei ho'esh. So why shouldn't this be true for Havdalah as well? So we have to understand. What difference there may be. So we're going to ask one other kasha. We also know there are different minhagim when it comes to Kiddush. There are different minhagim in Klal Yisrael when it comes to Kiddush. In some circles, every bacha makes his own Kiddush. And it's not yoytze with the father's Kiddush. Every bacha makes his own Kiddush. That's the minhag. Many Hasidim have that minhag. Every bacha makes his own Kiddush. Others hold, no, it's better for everyone to be yoytze with the Kiddush of the Balabas. B'roiva Madras Melech. And really, this is a machlokes among the Gedolei Achronim. The Tosfos Shabbos says that if there's many people who need to be yoytze Kiddush, it's better for that one person should make Kiddush, and everyone should be yoytze with that person's Kiddush, because Broiva Madras Melech. But on the other hand, the Oila Shabbos brings the Sefer Oila Shabbos. He says no, that it's better for each one to make his own Kiddush. So again, we have these two conflicting opinions. And again, we have to understand, what do? We have an open Gemara, two Gemaras in Brachas, where the Gemara says mefurish that it's better by the bracha of Hagofen and by the bracha of Moirei Yoesh. Gemara says mefurish that it's better for one person to make these brachas and be moitzi the whole oilam, because Broi V'Amadus Melech. So how can anyone hold that by Kiddush it's preferable for each one to make his own Kiddush? Now, one could ask the following kasha. There's a Tosfos in Brachas. And I've Chof Aleph on the base. The Gemara says over there that if let's say someone comes late to shul, let's say he's coming to mincha, he's coming to mincha, and the oilam is already in the middle of Shemon Esrei. The tzibur is in the middle of Shemon Esrei. So what should he do? So the Gemara says it depends. If he's able to start Shemon Esrei right now, and he knows he'll be able to finish on time to answer Kedusha, he should do that. Because he starts right now, he'll chaperein tefillah b'tzibur. It may not be the optimal tefillah b'tzibur, but he'll chaperein tefillah b'tzibur. And he'll answer Kedusha as well. But if he knows that if he starts now, he will not be finished on time to answer Kedusha, the Chazan is going to get up to Kedusha before he finishes his Shemon Esrei. And in those Shemon Esrei, he's not allowed to answer Kedusha, then he shouldn't start. He should wait for Kedusha, answer Kedusha, and then daven, because even though he'll miss out Tefillah B'tzibur, but Kedusha is more important than the mitzvah of Tefillah B'tzibur. If a person has to make a choice between Tefillah B'tzibur or Kedusha comes first. Fake Toises are kasha. Because the halacha is, that's how Toises holds, and that's how we hold also halacha l'maisa, that if a person is in middle of Shemon Esrei and the shliach tzibur is up to Kedusha, so the halacha is that he should stop. He cannot answer Kedusha in middle of Shemon Esrei, but he could stop, listen to the Chazan say Kedusha, and be yaitze with Shmei Koina. He can be yaitze with Shmei Koina. That's the halacha. So if that's the case, fake Toises, even if he won't be finished Shemon Esrei in time to answer Kedusha, but he still could be yaitze. He can be yaitze by, he'll stop and listen to the Chazan say Kedusha. Chazan will say Kodesh, 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 etc. That's the main part of Kedusha. He'll listen and he'll be yaitze. He'll be yaitze Kedusha with Shemei Koina. So Memela fake Toises, since he could be yaitze, which using the concept of Shemei Koina, he could be yaitze. So why do we say that if he comes in the middle of Shemon Esrei and he knows he won't be able to finish in time for Kedusha, he should wait? Why do you have to wait? Let him start right now. Chaperein tefillah b'tzibur, and then when they'll get up to Kedusha, he'll stop and he'll listen to the Chazan, and he'll be yaitze. He'll be yaitze Kedusha by listening to the Chazan. And for Toisves, Inochinami, it's true he could be yaitze that way, but if he doesn't say Kedusha himself, he just listens to the Chazan. So he's being yaitze. How is one yaitze? By listening, using the concept of Shmei Koina. There's the concept of Shmei Koina. Zog Toisves, it's more of a Hidu mitzvah to say it yourself than just listening and using the concept of Shmei Koina. Shmei is Koina, but it's better to be an Oina, to be mamish an Oina. Tfei Hidu mitzvah, Toisves says, Tfei Hidur, to have an Aniyah mamish, to mamish say it, rather than be yaitze with Shmei Koina. So this is a pella. So we tell the person, be mavata on tefillah b'tzibur, give up tefillah b'tzibur, so that you'll be able to say Kedusha together with the tzibur. And even though if he starts right now, he'll still be able to be yaitze Kedusha. He just won't be able to say it with his mouth, but he can be yaitze using Shmei Koina. But we say no. But since it's a tfei hidur to say it yourself, it's worth. He's mechuyev to be mavata on tefillah b'tzibur, so that he's able to say it himself and not rely on Shmei Koina. So this is a big problem now. How does the Gemara say in brachas that it's better to be yaitze brachas by listening to someone else? Because b'roiv hadras melech, when I listen to someone else's brachas, how am I yaitze? I'm yaitza because Shemei Koina, listening is like saying it. So the Gemara says it's better to be yaitza by listening to someone else rather than say myself, because B'roiv or Madras Melech. But according to Tosfos and Brachos, to listen to someone else and to be yaitza with Shemei Koina is a b'diavad. We give up. We are willing to give up tefillah tzibur to be able to save myself and not be soymech on Shemei Koina. So how come when it comes to Roiv or Madras Melech, we say it's better to be yaitza by listening to someone else's bracha rather than say it myself. But listening to someone else's bracha, where I'm using the rule of Shemei Koina is fitosis is b'diavadik. It's b'diavadik. How could it be better? How could the Maila of Broiva Madras Melech overrule this b'diavadik way of being yaitz through Shemei Koina? So we want to say the following. And this will explain the steerers, why sometimes we say and sometimes we say it's better to say yourself, at least according to some poskim. And this is based on the yisoid of the Pri Megadim. There is a halacha in Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Samach Zayin or Chaim Kuf Samach Zayin Sivav. We know that if someone makes a bracha, let's say he makes a bracha ananin, makes the bracha on the food, So if he speaks out before he bites into the food, even one word, that's a hefsek, and he loses the bracha, he has to make the bracha over again. That's halacha psuka. Unless the word that he says has a shaykhis to the eating, he says bring salt. Even though he shouldn't have done that l'chatchila, that wouldn't be hefsek. But he says tam, a word that has no shaykhis to the achila, it's a hefsek, and the bracha is lost. He says bracha shem kolei machusa, and he has to repeat the bracha. That's a pashut halacha. But what about the following scenario? Let's say I'm being moitzi someone else. I'm making a bracha. Let's say it's Shabbos and I'm making a moitzi, and I'm being yaitz to the mishpacha. I'm yaitz to the family. I make a moitzi. I'm going to be eating. They're going to be eating, but they're being yaitz with my bracha. So let's say I make the bracha. I make the moitzi. And I eat right away without a hefsek. But one of the listeners spoke out before he bit into the piece of bread. What's the halacha? Does he have to repeat the bracha? So the Ramaz paskins that he does not have to repeat the bracha. Since he's being yaiteh with my bracha, and I was not mafsik, I ate right away after making the bracha. So even though he was mafsik before he started eating the bread, it's okay, and he can eat the bread without making a new bracha. The Mishmur over there brings that Kamat, all Achronim disagree with this psak, and they say no, that this, even though the one that made the bracha was not mafsik, but if one of the listeners was mafsik, so he loses the bracha. You got to make a bracha. He's got to make his own bracha over again. But the Ramah Paskins, that no, the Ramah Paskins, it brings us from the same Darazura, I think. The Ramah Paskins that even if one of the listeners spoke out before he began eating, as long as the Mavarech was not mafsik, the Shemeya could be yaitz. Now the Taz asks a kasha on the Ramah. He asks, what would be the halacha? This Ramah is in Siman Kuf Samach Zayin, Hilchos Birchas Hanenin. What would be the halacha by Birchas HaMitzvah? Let's say a bunch of people are putting on tefillin at the same time, or putting on a talis at the same time, and we already learned that one person can make the bracha, be mitzvah all the others. We don't do that. but technically one can make the bracha and be mitzi all the others. So let's say I'm making the bracha and I'm being mitzi others. And that my bracha the mitzvahs, the law is the same, that if I make a bracha and then I speak out before putting on the talis or before tying the tefillin to my hand, I lose the bracha, the hefsek. Let's say the one that made the bracha was not mafsik. He made the bracha, he put on tefillin right away. But one of the listeners was mafsik before he put on his tefillin. So it would seem that everybody would agree in that case that the listener has to repeat the bracha. Because the Ramah doesn't say this halacha is chiddush. He doesn't say it until Siman Kuf Samach Zayin Hilchos Birchas Hanen. He doesn't say that Hilchos Birchas HaMitzvahs that if the listener was mafsik, he does not have to repeat the bracha. So the Taz assumes that everyone agrees by Birchas HaMitzvahs. Everyone agrees that if the listener is mafsik, he's got to repeat the bracha. But the Taz says he doesn't understand. Why should there be a difference between Birchas Hanen and Birchas HaMitzvahs? Why by Birchas HaMitzvahs do we say that if the listener is mafsik, even though the one that made the bracha was not mafsik, but if the listener was mafsik, he loses the bracha and he's got to repeat the bracha? And by Birchas Hanen, the Ramah paskins that no, as long as the one that made the bracha to be made to the others, as long as he is not mafsik, even though the listener was mafsik, he does not have to repeat the bracha. Why should there be a difference between Birchas Hanen and Birchas HaMitzvahs? This is a Taz's kasha. He remains with a kasha. Because of this kasha, he argues with the Ramah. But the Pri Megadim is miyashev the Ramah with a very big yesod. And he says that there's a basic difference between a Birchas HaMitzvahs and a Birchas Hanen. It says like this. A Birchas HaMitzvah, since I'm mechuyev to do this, I'm mechuyev to put on tefillin, I'm mechuyev to have tzitzis if I'm wearing a beged of dalet kanfos. So a Birchas HaMitzvah is called a bracha shel chiyuvi. Chazal were mechayev everyone to make his own bracha. Now, that which I can be yaitza by listening to someone else's bracha, that's because of the concept of Shomea Koina, which makes it as if I'm saying the bracha. Shomea Koina means my listening is like saying the bracha. There's a big question, what the lumdus of Shomea Koina is, but the Pri Megadim is going that it's like I'm saying the bracha. When I listen to your bracha and I'm mechaven to be yaitza, and you're mechaven to be mitzi me, it's as if I am saying the bracha. Mashen Kain, Memela sagt the Pri Megadim. That's why by Birchas HaMitzvahs, if I'm mitzi, if I'm putting on tefillin and you're putting on tefillin, and I'm being mitzi you with my bracha, and you speak out before you put on the tefillin, you got to make the bracha over again because you're not being yaitze with my bracha. You are making the bracha. You're using the concept of Shomea Koina, which means that you are making the bracha yourself by listening to my bracha. It's as if you made the bracha. But if you speak out before you put on the tefillin, you are mafsik. Just like if I speak out before I put on the tefillin, I lose the bracha. So you're no different than me because you're also considered making the bracha. Because by Birchas HaMitzvahs, Chazal will mechayev each one to make his own bracha. That can only work using the concept of Shomea Koina, which makes it that as if you are making your own bracha. And if you speak out before you put on the tefillin, you lose the bracha. But by Birchas Hanen, since Birchas Hanen is not really a bracha shel chiyuvi, which means that I only have to make the bracha if I want to eat. If I want to eat, I have to make a bracha, but if I don't eat, I'm not mechuyev to make this bracha. If I eat, I have to make a bracha because also hanais min oil vazeh b'loy bracha. So the Birchas Hanen, Chazal would it's more kal, and there Chazal would never mechayev each one to make his own bracha. When I'm yaitze with your bracha, Zucker, Pri Megadim, that does not work with the lumdus of Shomea Koina. It works with the lomdas of shlichus. It works, he said before, it works with shluchai shel adam k'maisai. If I listen to your bracha, we don't need the din of shemer k'oina to be yaitza. You are my shliach. As long as I listen to that bracha, I can be yaitza with your bracha. It's not that as if I'm saying the bracha. We don't need the concept of shemer k'oina by birchas hanenin. I listen to your bracha and I can be yaitze with your bracha. Your bracha can work for me. If I listen to your bracha, you can be my shliach and I can be yaitze with your bracha. That's why Zucker Pimagodim. That's why by birchas hanenin. If you are moitzi me and you ate right away without hefsik, I was mafsik. The Ramah holds I could continue. I could eat without making a new bracha, because by birchas hanenin, I'm not the one that's making the bracha. I'm being yaitze with your bracha, and you weren't mafsik. So the bracha that I'm using was already chal. It was chal without a hefsik. It's just like if I make a bracha to eat some food and I eat right away without a hefsik, then I talk and I want to eat some more. So I can do that, and then I can eat more. The more that I ate, that also needs a bracha. So I'm using the first bracha is going to cover whatever I eat. And even though I spoke out after eating the first mouthful, I spoke out. But it doesn't matter, because as long as the bracha was already chal, once it was chal, it's already goyre everything else that I eat. Even if I talk out afterwards, it doesn't matter. We just need the bracha to be chal. And as long as I'm not mafsik between the bracha and the initial achila, the bracha is chal, and then it can cover all the food that I eat, even if I speak out afterwards. The same concept is if you're being moitzi me, since we're not using the concept of shemer k'oina by birchas hanenin, rather we're saying that it's a concept of shlichus. According to Pri Megadim, it's a concept of shlichus. We're all being yaitze with your bracha. So as long as your bracha was chal, because you were not mafsik between the bracha and the achila, memela I could be yaitze, even though I was mafsik, but the bracha was already chal. I'm not using my own bracha. I'm using your bracha, and your bracha was chal because you were not mafsik between the bracha and the achila, and memela that bracha could cover my eating, even though I was mafsik. So that's how he answers the Taz's kasha. That's why there's a difference between birchas hanenin and birchas hamitzvos when it comes to this question of when I'm being moitzi others, and I was not mafsik, others were mafsik. So by birchas hamitzvos, the Ramah agrees that if the listener was mafsik, he loses the bracha. Because birchas hamitzvos where the chivas, each one got to make his own bracha. So there, and so there we need the concept of shemer k'oina, because that makes it that he said his own bracha. Memela, if he speaks out, he loses the bracha. The fact that I didn't speak out, that's not going to help you. You spoke out, so you lose the bracha. It's only by birchas hanenin where there we're not using the concept of shemer k'oina, because there Chazal were never machayev each one to make his own bracha. It's not a bracha shel chiyuvi, because you don't have to eat. Even though once you're eating, you have to make a bracha because it's also to eat without a bracha. But there Chazal were never machayev each one to make his own bracha. There, when I'm moitzi you're being yaitze with my bracha. I'm your shliach, and you're being yaitze with my bracha. We're not using the concept of shemer k'oina. It's a new din of shlichus that can be used by birchas hanenin, and therefore, since everybody's being yaitze with my bracha, memela, as long as I wasn't mafsik, even though you were mafsik, it doesn't matter. The bracha was already chal. You're not using your own bracha, you're using my bracha, and my bracha was chal. So you can be yaitze even though you were mafsik, even though you spoke out. You can still be yaitze and don't have to make your own bracha. Once we have this side of the Pri Megadim, we can understand very well But even though the Gemara says, the Fushi Gemara says that there's a rule of brave hadras melech. The Gemara said it Mefurish, the Mishnah says it Mefurish by Birchas and Nenin, very big often, and also by the bracha Boirei Moira Eish. Whereas one could say as follows: by Birchas HaMitzvah, let's say Kiddush. Kiddush, it's not a bracha Hananin, it's a bracha Shal Chiyuvi, or the bracha, the Mechaba by Talis, or the Gemara by Avdallah. These are all brachas Shal Chiyuvi. So in all those cases, the way one can be yaitze with someone else's bracha, you have to use Shemaya Koina, because for the Prima Godim, by Birchas HaMitzvahs, it's a chiyuv on each one to make his own bracha. I cannot be yaitze with your bracha, but when I listen to you, the way it works is that it's my bracha, because Shemaya Koina. So we can hear very well why in that case, on Adarabah, it's better for each one to make his own bracha for two reasons. First of all, since you have to use the lumdis of Shmei Koina, we have the Tosfos and brachas that says Shmei Koina is not lechatchila. Shmei Koina is more mehuda. When you're using the lumdis of Shmei Koina, it's better to have an aniyah mamish rather than have a Shmei Koina. That's first of all, and secondly, since it has to work with Shmei Koina, kum tois, that we're not really being yaitze. There's no Rav Amal here. Because even though we're all listening to you, but I'm not being yaitze with your bracha. It's like each one making his own bracha. There's no mile of Rav. By Birchas Hananin, like a goffin, or let's say the bracha Boirei Moira Eish. So there Chazal will never machayiv each one to make his own bracha. There we don't have to use, according to the Prima Godim, we don't have to use the concept of Shmei Koina, which is only b'di'evedik according to Tosfos and brachas. But we're not using Shmei Koina. There we're using Shlichos, the Prima Godim says. We're all being yaitze with your bracha, you're being our shliach. So there, Taka, there's an Indian of Rav, because we're all using one bracha. Everybody's being yaitze with the bracha of the Mevarech. So there's an Indian of Rav hadras melech. Mashen came by Birchas HaMitzvahs. There, it's talking. Not everybody agrees to this, of course, because we're just trying to explain those that hold that it's better to each one make his own bracha by the tzitzis, or by the megillah, or by kiddush, right? The shittas that hold it's better for each one to make his own bracha, because since these are all brachas shel chiyuvi, they're not brachas hananin, they're brachas hamitzvahs, where the Prima Godim says, that there we need the lumdus of Shmei Koina, because each one got to make his own bracha. Each one got to make his own bracha to be yaitze. So the only way that works is to use Shmei Koina. So Shmei Koina, first of all, the whole thing is just b'di'evedik, according to Tosfos and brachas, Daf Chav Beis. And secondly, since we have to use the lumdus of Shmei Koina, it's anyway not going to have the milo of Roiv Hadras Melech, because we're not, the oilam is not being yaitze with the bracha of the Mevarech. It's each one is making his own bracha. So you anyway don't have that mila of Roiv Hadras Melech that everyone is using one bracha, because that's not the way it works. Each one has to make his own bracha. Shmei Koina makes it that each one is saying his own bracha. Now, those that hold that by Kiddush, there are many that hold that by Kiddush. We do apply the rule of Roiv Hadras Melech. Many are not that way. In the Yeshiva Shoilam, Litvish Shoilam, they follow the shitta that holds that by Kiddush it's better for one person to be mighty the whole oilam. So it could very well be that the pshat is that they may agree that by Birchas HaMitzvahs it's better if each one to make his own bracha. But Kiddush is not a birchas on mitzvahs, really. It's not a bracha on a mitzvah. Bracha on a mitzvah, there, Chazal is sakin that the bracha is dumya to the mitzvah, just like the mitzvah, each one got to do the mitzvah himself. Each one got to put on his own tefillin. I can't make you to put on tefillin for me. Each one has to put on tefillin himself. Each one got to eat matzah himself. I can't make somebody else to eat matzah for me. I got to eat matzah myself, and so on. So Chazal is sakin that the bracha, which is the bracha on the mitzvah, is dumya to the mitzvah. Each one got to do it himself, and therefore we need the concept of Shmei Koina, and Mamela, there would not be Brayvam. But Kiddush, that is the mitzvah itself. It's not a bracha on a mitzvah. Kiddush is the mitzvah. So it could be that that's dumya to birchas hanenin or birchas hashvach, and there we don't need to use the concept of Shmei Koina. There we could use Shlichus, and Mela, it's Shayach, Broivam Hadis Melech. Maybe the Shayach Broivam Hadis Melech. That could be the Shaila between the two Minhagim or the two Shittas, whether by Kiddush we say Broivam Hadis Melech, or we say it's better if each one to make his own Kiddush. Does it have a din of a broch on a mitzvah? Or no, it's not a broch on a mitzvah. It is the mitzvah. So maybe if it is the mitzvah, Chadal would have a second that each one has to do it himself. Shlichus works. If Shlichus works, then the concept of Broivam Hadis Melech could apply. We can explain using this. We can explain the following: there is a very prevalent minhag in Klal Yisrael that even those who all year around don't have each bacha make his own kiddush, one person makes kiddush and might see everyone. But there is a very prevalent minhag that by Seder night, everyone makes their own kiddush. Some make it together, but there's a very prevalent minhag in Klal Yisrael that the Seder night, everyone makes their own kiddush. All the dalet kaises, everyone makes it, makes the bracha himself. And many have. I don't understand that minhag. Why should it be that way? What happens to Broivam Hadis Melech? I mean, why should Pesach night be different than the rest of the year? If all year round, those that are annoying that one makes kiddush and is mighty everyone else because Broivam Hadis Melech. So why should the Seder night be any different? Why in the Seder night do we have everyone making their own bracha? What happened to Broivam Hadis Melech? If that's why you know all year round, that one person makes kiddush and is mighty everyone else. So why when it comes to the Seder night, kiddush and all the other kaises, everyone makes his own kiddush. But it could be the way we explained it. It could be the union like this. But in Emerson, our minhag Ashkenaz is that we make a separate bracha on each one of the dalet kaises. Truth is, why should that be so? I mean, once I made a go from the kiddush, and I know I'm going to be drinking the second cup, so why shouldn't the second cup be covered with the agafen of the first cup? Now the third cup, of course, I need a new bracha because I benched in between. But the fourth cup has also the same problem. Once I made a agafen on the third cup, knowing that there's going to be a fourth cup, so why shouldn't the fourth cup be covered by the agafen of the third cup? And the truth is, the Sfardim, the Emerson Sfardim, do not make a separate agafen on the second and fourth cup. But minhag Ashkenaz is that we do make a separate agafen on each one of the cups. And the Rishonim say that the pshat is, because since each one of the kaises is a separate mitzvah, each one is a separate independent mitzvah. We say we drink 4 kaises kineged the dalet l'shaynis shagula. It's not just 4 l'shaynis, it's 4 different stages of the gula. And each cup comes to be mishabeach and be the Eibishter for that chelik of the gula. Each cup is a separate independent mitzvah. Therefore, we make a separate bracha. Now, what does that mean? I mean, the bracha, if the bracha is a simple birchas hanenin, so why should that make a difference? The fact that it's a separate mitzvah, but as far as birchas hanenin is concerned, it should be covered. The second cup should be covered with the agafen of the first kais. But the answer is, before I say this, that the pshat is that the agafen that we make for the dalet kaises is not only a birchas hanenin. If it only would be a birchas hanenin, then we wouldn't make a separate bracha for the second cup. We already made a bracha first cup, and we wouldn't make another bracha for the fourth cup. It's covered by the third cup. But it's a type of a birchas mitzvahs, even though we don't say Hashekhi Shonim, say so. But it's a type of birchas mitzvahs. We're thanking the Eibishter for creating wine for Boire Priya Gofen, creating the Priya Gofen, this wine that enables me to be Mekayim the mitzvah, mitzvah Aleph, mitzvah Beis, mitzvah Gimel, since each one is a separate mitzvah, each one deserves its own bracha. But the bracha, it's a man of a bracha of mitzvahs. It's not just a bracha of nenet. It's a type of bracha of mitzvahs. It's not just making a bracha on being nenet from the wine. Then I wouldn't have to make a second bracha for the second case or the fourth case. But it's a bracha thanking, being Mishabeach, the Eibishter, for creating wine that enables me to be Mishabeach, the Eibishter, for this nace, for that nace. Each cup is a separate chelik of the gula that I'm thanking the Eibishter for, and I'm making a bracha hagofin. It's like a bracha that mitzvahs come out. It's for the mitzvah. I'm being Mishabeach, the Eibishter, for giving me this wine to be able to drink the wine and be mahalo and mishabeach him for the gula, for that chelik of the gula that's represented by that kois of the wine. Memela, it's very beautiful. What all year round, the hagofen by Kiddush is a birchas hanen. The birchas hanen. That's why it's not really Friday night the bracha you make. The Kiddush is just the first bracha. The hagofen is not an intrinsic chelik of Kiddush. That's why some people this year on Purim, which is on Friday, so some people they eat the Suda later and they praise Mappa and they go into Shabbos and they have the Suda Shabbos right in the middle of the Suda's Purim, and they make Kiddush right in the middle of the Suda's Purim, and they don't repeat hagofen because the hagofen they already said Miboy Jaim, and that covers. Even though that was Friday still, that was way before Plaga Mincha. But it doesn't matter. The hagofen is not a chelik of the Kiddush. The hagofen Friday night is a regular birchas hanenin. But by the Seder night, the 4 hagofens is not just a birchas hanenin. It's a birchas. It's a birchas mitzvah. It's on the bracha of, because the first kais that you drink by Kiddush is also a chelik of it's one of the daled kaises, and the daled kaises need this hagofen besides the birchas hanenin, right? It's a shtickle birchas mitzvahs, and therefore, since it's a bracha on the key mitzvah of each one of the daled kaises, it had the din of birchas mitzvahs, the bracha on a mitzvah, and therefore I have to make that bracha myself. And we need the lumnus of Shmei Kaina. It doesn't work like all other birchas hanenin, where I can use shlichus according to be megadim. I don't have to make the bracha myself. I can be yotze with your bracha. You will be my shliach. If I listen to your bracha, I can be yotze with your bracha. It doesn't have to work with Shmei Kaina. But Seder night, the 4 hagofens that we make is not only birchas hanenin, it's also birchas mitzvah. If the birchas mitzvah, I have to make it myself, and the only way that works is Shmei Kaina. If it's Shmei Kaina, there perhaps we said we don't say Roy Vam Hadus Melech. On the contrary, Shmei Kaina says the bracha is the Evedik. And B'chlal, since I have to make it myself, we're not gonna have the milah of Roy Vam Hadus Melech. We're not gonna have the milah of Roy Vam Hadus Melech because each one is making his own bracha. So it'd be very beautiful why even those who all year round are moitzi Kiddush to the whole Olam, because Roy Vam Hadus Melech, because there is no bracha, there's no bracha on a mitzvah. So you can use shlichus. You don't eat Shmei Kaina. But Pesach by night, the hagofen is a bracha mitzvah. It's a bracha mitzvah. It's a chiyuv for each one to make the bracha himself. And for that, you need Shmei Kaina. If you need Shmei Kaina, you don't have the mile of Roy Vam Hadus Melech. On the contrary, it's a shtickle chesaron. The shtickle chesaron to be yotze to use Shmei Kaina according to Taisus and brachas, and that could be a yishuv on the minig island by Pesach by night. Each one makes his own kiddush, and all the brachas of dal kaises, each one makes himself, and they're not yotze with Shmei Kaina. I'm just being miyash of those who are like that. Most of the Klal think is like that way. And Pesach by night, each one makes his own kiddush, and all the brachas on the dal kaises, each one makes himself.